Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Midwest Ag This Week. I'm Stu Ellis. I'll take care of the chores for you today. We're going to take a look at a farmer's report card for their conservation homework last year. Some magic beans on the horizon. We'll get an evaluation of that new crop insurance program. And join me as we go fishing and flying. We've got a great show for you today.
Welcome to Midwest Ag This Week with host Stu Ellis.
Well, you hear about those consumer surveys all the time, and they indicate a desire for farmers to do more toward water quality issues, climate change, soil health. They want to see results, a report card of sorts. The latest one on nutrient management in Illinois indicated farmers are going in the wrong direction. Listen closely to Laura Gentry of Precision Conservation Management.
We are moving in the wrong direction. We're not even seeing declines. We're seeing increases in nitrate and phosphorus losses, Stu. And so are we making progress? We're doing more, but we need to practice on every acre of farmland out there.
That's significant. I don't know that we're going to get that.
Then we may not meet the Illinois nutrient loss reduction strategy goals. And I think then we need to start thinking about the implications of that.
Which are?
It lays out the blueprint for further regulation of agriculture.
Not many people would like that.
No. And I think what we don't focus on enough is that we can make changes on every acre. It's completely doable. We are in a situation now where we get to choose what practices we implement. It doesn't have to be practices that cost us money. We can pull back on tillage. We can pull back on our nitrogen applications. We should pull back on our nitrogen applications probably for corn, according to a lot of the data that we're seeing from Precision Conservation Management, the Illinois Corn and Illinois Soybean Association Farmer Service Program. We're seeing it from University of Illinois. If we are going to meet our water quality goals, farmers need to start thinking about their nitrate losses and their phosphorus losses and how they can reduce some of those losses from their fields. For soybean, reducing our tillage and growing a cover crop are great ways to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus losses. For corn, obviously, getting your rate right for your corn applications is critical, both for water quality and for issues around climate change. But then reducing tillage if possible, and growing a cover crop is probably the single most effective practice that any farmer can do to address a host of different water quality and greenhouse gas type issues that we're being asked to look at in agriculture.
Some new agronomic things for this year. Also new for 2022, particularly corn, is the PACE crop insurance program, designed to indemnify farmers if they don't get all their spring nitrogen side dressed because of adverse weather. The point is to move nitrogen away from fall toward spring application. Farmer and crop insurance specialist Vince Reinke says it's still a work in progress.
That PACE program or that PACE product does add some cost, but at least helps us protect against that untimely application. Now, the unfortunate part is that when we look at the value versus the cost, it doesn't look like it's probably a consideration for many producers as we, consider it for 2022. In the corn coverage. However, as we look ahead, it's that type of ingenuitive or innovative product that we want to keep looking for as we continue down the road of crop insurance.
PACE was conceived by Illinois corn growers and several conservation groups.
And certainly we appreciate all the folks that have worked so hard in putting that together. So, I think it's important for everyone to give consideration to that product on their own, in their own operation and on their own soils. But certainly it's one of those products that, just like every product, is just a work in progress, and we keep working to make it better as time goes on. And so, there's some changes that we'll need to look at as we look ahead, but, for it to be a more inviting product to use, but at the same time, certainly nice to see those innovations in work and all the folks that continue to work to bring those innovations to the crop insurance industry.
So what would Reinke do to improve the PACE program?
PACE in general, the producers have adapted our operations, our functions to allow for that split application and doing it in a timely manner. So, the cost of the product is going to have to be pretty minimal when we look at it. because we have gotten really good at making sure we get those 2 applications of nitrogen on. So, when we look ahead, we're probably going to want to just look at how beneficial it is to split our applications of nitrogen into 2 applications versus just a single application, and then recognize the sustainability of that practice, and probably focus on how we can just incentivize producers to move in the direction of more sustainable practices.
So if you are concerned about the weather during a spring application and not getting it all on, that's what PACE is all about. I'm not going to ask you whether spring will be wet or dry right now.
Right now, yeah.
But the winter's been snowy here in the last day or so.
Yeah, I was going to say, we actually got some snow, and quite a bit of it too.
So enough to go around.
Enough to go around, yeah. Most locations, especially in the state that did receive it, were anywhere between 8 and 16 inches of snow. So our snow depth actually looks a lot different than we've shown in the previous Midwest Ag This Week forecasts. So snow depth obviously is much higher in the mountains, especially in California. They've been really able to recharge a lot of the drought problems that they've had there with some extra snow coming on in, so that's been great. But for us in the state of Illinois, we finally have some snow. After showing a snow depth of 0 for many months already, we have anywhere from essentially, like I said, 8 to 16 inches of snow currently on the ground. And when you're to melt all that down, most locations come in with very healthy amounts. These green, kind of light green colors would signify very close to an inch, if not even an inch and a quarter worth of rain. And that kind of makes sense too if you have been out and about with all the snow that's out there. It's got a lot of water, high water content with that snow. Our drought monitor, this came out yesterday, and you'll see that California is looking to be a lot better. Some dry spots remain out to the west and also in the panhandle regions of Texas and Oklahoma. But Illinois looking to be fairly good. Just have to still watch out for that northwestern corner there. Some of those dry spots are kind of creeping back closer and just passing now the Illinois River. Our future track, though, is going to show that we're going to be very quiet for this week. So after an active pattern with the big snow system that's now moving through the New England area, we're going to have just cold temperatures here. So in terms of temperatures for a lot of the week, we're going to be spending a lot of time below average, and it may actually be not until potentially the middle to end of next week when temperatures rise above 32 degrees. Maybe a little bit more activity expected by the end of next week as a few clipper systems pass through the Great Lakes. And so, Stewie, we may have to add in a chance for some light snow for especially the northern part of the state by later on in our forecast. But overall, though, pretty quiet. No major systems like the one we just got done with.
All right, and hope we get some wetness over in the northwestern part of the state.
Yes.
Going fishing right after this. Don't go away.
Welcome back to Midwest Ag This Week.
Several decades ago, at least I'm old enough to remember, ADM converted its hydroponic operation into aquaculture and began raising fish. Companies again raising fish, but ADM's John Bowser said they're only for researching the best feed and nutrition to provide aquaculture operations around the world with more sustainable fish food than meal from ocean fish.
Production is always very important to our customers, doing that efficiently, but we're also looking at the health and wellness of the animal, making sure that they're being raised properly. But the other big one is sustainability. So that's a big goal for ADM in general, but it's also a big factor in the aquaculture industry globally. We're even going beyond corn and beans. We're really looking at a variety of products. ADM's huge with a large footprint into a lot of plant proteins as well as other areas. So we're going to look and utilize all of those capabilities to look at, are there good solutions within that portfolio to help those customers. But yeah, it's really getting back to kind of those pillars and helping those farmers achieve their goals of what their customers are demanding.
Okay. Your customers are where? What sort of companies would somebody recognize, or locations around the world does these nutritional products go?
It's very broad, so it's really global footprint. A lot of where we operate is in the warm water species globally, so you're talking Vietnam and Asia and Brazil, Central America are key areas for us as well as other companies. And as I mentioned before, we're working with feed mills, but we're also working with distributors of ingredients so that they can get those products to customers. And we always keep a touch of what the markets are doing. What are the trends in aquaculture and what are those customers demanding? So we really do play throughout that supply chain.
You opened up something interesting. What is a trend in aquaculture?
Yeah, trend, a big one that's been going on is sustainability. So we've been working with that, really trying to reduce fish meal and fish oil dependence in the industry, because if it's going to grow, we need to find alternatives to those to grow our fish in a healthy and productive manner. So that's a big one. In general, it's a real big growth area. People are eating more fish and shrimp than they have previously, so the trend is to continue to produce those animals to meet those demands.
He's working with a lot of water. We want to work with a lot of soil. And Abigail Peterson began as the head of agronomy for the Illinois Soybean Association, and it was last May. She's been so busy that 2 additional agronomists have been hired to help her. They have good credentials and the ability to help farmers with a variety of issues.
Oh, definitely. So at the Soybean Association, as the part of the agronomy team, here to support farmers in all things agronomy. So from conservation to production, quality out in the field, needing IPM actionable resources for farmers. It pretty much encompasses what the farmers need agronomically and providing it to them through CCAs, advisors, researchers. We work with universities across the state. It's really just a network of people surrounding us and us being able to work with them and provide farmers the resources they need.
Jennifer Jones is one of 2 agronomy managers.
Before joining ISA, I was with the University of Illinois Extension for about 3.5 years working on the Illinois nutrient loss reduction strategy. So my experience is a lot in water quality and soil health and trying to help farmers adopt conservation practices to protect their water and soil. And before that, I actually got my master's at Purdue in agronomy, focusing on cover crops and soil health. So my kind of bread and butter is more of the cover crops and how we can use those to improve soil health and water quality.
How would you intersect with farmers then?
So we'll be just working with farmers a lot to do different research projects. Out in the field, we're trying to help them find the best economical way to introduce some of these conservation practices into their operation if they're not already. And then also just doing outreach and education.
Megan Miller is the other agronomy manager.
So I actually have my master's from North Carolina State University in plant pathology. And while I was in North Carolina, I was able to work for a small grains extension program. So just like Jennifer, a lot of boots on the ground, grower outreach, events like Soybean Summit and Better Beans are things I love to be able to work on and bring information, very technical information to farmers at their level. I've also spent the last year consulting for some bigger carbon markets in the space, so have worked a lot with that and are working with our board and our growers to navigate the carbon market space.
And if we're going to raise more beans and better beans, we've got to have a way to sell them. Chip Nellinger is with us, Blue Reef Marketing. Chip, we've got some soybeans down in Brazil that just didn't get grown and aren't going to be sold. They've had a tough time, and the estimates are going downhill on what they're producing.
Yeah, they really are, and it's a moving target. Obviously, the hot, dry weather has taken a toll, on that crop, but the extent of those losses are still a little bit debated in here. We do have the USDA report out next Wednesday, the February crop report. That will give us a fresh look at estimates in the USDA's eyes anyway, of both Brazil, corn, and beans, as well as Argentina. So the whole southern hemisphere still on the dry side. There have been some beneficial rains in the past few weeks in some of those dry areas, particularly in Argentina. But the ultimate size of that crop down there in the southern hemisphere is still in question, and that's really what's driving our markets right now. It's incredible. In the last 90 days, it went from estimates, of north of 5.2 billion bushels for the Brazil crop, and now you've taken 800, 900 million bushels and maybe counting off of the top end of that crop in just the last 90 days. So that's what the market is driving on right now. And the volatility is extremely high right now.
Okay, with that volatility high, and with acreage report coming up at the end of March, how would you suggest that farmers really protect themselves and manage their risk ahead of that?
That is an important question, and it's different for everyone. First of all, we've got the February spring crop insurance price being averaged this month, so that's going to be at a high level, maybe the highest level that we've ever seen. So the crop insurance plays into that. Also, profitability. You got to know where your numbers are as a baseline, have that cost to production figure, and then back into that saying, hey, what's the price level right now? Do we need to be doing something on the risk management side to lock those profits in and maybe open the top side up and kind of have the best of both worlds? It's going to be a volatile, wild year, Stu.
That's right. Sage advice from Chip Nellinger. Chip, thank you much. We'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Come back with your seatbelt buckled. One of the building blocks in agriculture in this state is the Illinois Ag Aviation Association. Farmers need aerial assistance to fight insects and disease in their crops, and the air tractors fill the summer sky. I caught up with Rick Reed of Mattoon, an old friend who had just retired as head of the association and a career crop duster himself.
You had a great career being the executive director of the Illinois Ag Aviation Association.
I was executive director of the Illinois Association for 35 years. I ran my business here for almost 40 years. So aviation was my life. Ag aviation was my passion. And in 1992, I was actually president of the National Agricultural Aviation Association. And I continue to still be heavily involved in those, although I don't have the position anymore. But the biggest airplane that we have now in this industry is going to have a 1,700 horsepower engine, turbine engine, and the speed across the ground is going to be, in the average, 145 miles an hour. And the cost for these airplanes, this one is over $1 million. The bigger ones are at $2 million. You have to do a lot of work with those airplanes to make them pay. Of course, today's farmers pay an incredible amount of money for combines and planters and even field cultivators. Right. So it's kind of the same thing, but the technology that's involved with in these airplanes inside, we have GPS guidance. Since 1993, we've had GPS guidance to keep us on track within a foot when we're going across the field. We can upload and download field locations, and once we're done, print it out to what was treated, shows the turn, and that is common technology to the point that I believe that we're close to 100% of every agricultural aircraft, including helicopters, is equipped with GPS.
Right.
And that's been since 1993.
Are there a lot of, how many pilots are active? How many airplanes? What's the population?
Give or take in the United States, they're right at 1,500 companies and a little over 3,500 pilots. And the number of aircraft, 3,700, and about 84% of those are fixed wing and the rest are helicopters, because there are helicopters in the business. The industry is growing all the time in a number of ways, and there are people who think that we're going to be a thing of the past, but no. Even try to cut back on petroleum products. Right. All right, we can do more with a lot less fuel than ground applicators. Well, you want to start cutting petroleum back, this is going to put more airplanes in the air.
That's right. With all the climate, with all the energy, I mean, you still got a good future.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I kind of wish I was in it, but it was time for me to retire and enjoy life a little bit more, because this was like an everyday job. If I was in town, I was at the airport. My wife said it was time to retire.
Great friend, Rick Reed, down at Mattoon. Magic Beans coming up. Share this with the cooks in your household and your consumer friends in town, but consumers all want a soybean oil without trans fats, and soybean oil with a high oleic fatty acid content is not far from the market. High oleic soybean varieties are being released this year by the U of I, and soybean breeder Brian Deers did the work on that. This year will expand the seed stock, which can be marketed next year.
If you look at the soil lake soybeans, they look like a normal soybeans. The difference is in the oil. So the oil extracted from the seed has a different composition of fatty acids. And what it does is it provides an oil that's more stable when used in cooking or frying, as well as it's a healthier oil than what we have normally in soybeans.
But the breeding process was complex.
Only by combining 4 genes together can we get that trait. So if you think about, let's say you make a cross between a normal soybean and a soil lake soybean, you grow an F2 population segregating for those traits from that cross, only 1 out of 256 plants would actually have the right gene combination.
Seed being released this year is for grow-out fields to multiply the seed stock.
It'll probably take a couple of years before we see a lot of seed available. So the University of Illinois is releasing 6 varieties this year with that trait, and we'll need this year to amplify seed. So there's going to be more seed on the market next year. University of Missouri has also released some soil lake varieties, and I think there'll be more seed on the market this year of those varieties.
Brian Stovall of the Missouri Checkoff Board says there's already a central Illinois market.
We have licensees here in the state ready to grow and to increase acres, and they are working with our public breeding programs and with our private licensees across the country to get more seed in the ground right here for 2022 and 2023.
You mentioned Clarkson Grain at Cerro Gordo. Where are some of the other potential markets in central Illinois?
So your other potential markets in central Illinois are going to be more or less you're going to have to grow and then move it to a location. But the closed loop system that everyone is working with, or identity preserved system, is allowing for that move because they are making sure that they are close to rail and are close to a highway for easy transport.
Well, that concludes this edition of Midwest Ag This Week. We hope you have benefited from some of the information you saw. I'm Stu Ellis. See you next week.